Great to have you with us today. It's a Friday. We now know who the 24 and 25 opponents are and where. We just don't know what date, time, sequencing, little things.
Yeah, little things and...
But it turned out pretty close to what I thought. Number one, let's start with this. To my knowledge, Penn State did not request any protected rivalries. They had the option of protecting up to 3. You notice Iowa has 3. Iowa's the one that has 3 protected rivalries. What, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Minnesota, right?
Yep.
So they did that. Penn State could have requested 3. I mean, they could have done that. But to my knowledge, I don't think Penn State requested anybody. Said, okay, just give us who you got. And that's the way it ended up being along the way. And I knew USC was going to be on for the year, for this year, or 24, I should say. And I knew it was going to be here. And I knew Ohio State was off in 25. So those are the things I knew going in. Everything else, I was like, okay, whatever. But I knew USC was here. I knew Ohio State was off in 25. Oh, yeah, the other one, I knew UCLA was here in 25. And that was about it. And I think that's, I've had people, it's interesting to hear people react to something like it, like, whatever. Not that really, I don't think it's a big deal either way. I think you knew that USC had to play in some form Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
The TV people are not going to sit there and say, I think maybe we'll wait till 26, 27 they can start playing them. You knew they were going to have to start playing them. So Penn State will get them in the home and away scenario in 24 and 25. So Penn State will be at the Coliseum in 25. And UCLA's here in 25. It's fine. I think the element, football-wise, that is being made too big a deal of is the travel scenario. I mean, they're making too big a deal out of it. Every article, the travel. You know what? Let me ask you something. What's the difference between busing 4 hours to Rutgers and flying 4 hours to California?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what's the difference?
Yeah.
I mean, Penn State played a basketball game in Atlantic City against NC State. I want to say it was like 2018, 19, something like that. All right. And bust. And it took them 5 hours and 15 minutes to get there on a bus because they went through the Philadelphia traffic, the whole thing. Right? Remember bringing that up, people go, hey, it's only 5 hours. Right. But boy, you fly a football team east. Right? Oh, the hour. What? You leave 2 hours earlier. I got it.
Yeah.
Right? You know the one thing you don't, when you are with a team, you know what you don't make a big deal out of? Stuff you can't control.
Mm-hmm.
You don't make a big deal out of stuff you can't control. So you don't sit there and look at your players and go, we got to get on a plane. We got to travel 4 or 5 hours. Like, what? What? Okay. You get on a plane. You travel. Okay? And USC is going to have to travel east 4 times 1 year and 5 the next. Right? They're not doing it 52. They'll be fine. And the games they're playing are not all at Rutgers and at Maryland, for example, where it would be the longest trips. Yeah, they got to come here to Penn State. That's fine. And Penn State has to go out there. It's fine. There's nothing, I mean, it's every article now it becomes an issue in the other sports because they play multiple times a week. Volleyball plays twice a week. Basketball, men's, women's basketball plays twice a week. So now you have to craft the schedules in such a way where you have to build that in. Football plays once a week. Once a week. And when you are, now, the California teams, the issue for them is going to be going home.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, why, what do you mean going home? Because the trip going west is longer.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because of the jet stream. I mean, it's an hour less coming this way. I mean, an hour, if not even a little bit more than an hour less coming this way. So the travel back after the game is not as big a deal as people think. And you always have the bye week you can build in. There are bye weeks that can be built in. And that's something we'll see how they build this next part. How do they build the next part of the schedule, which is the sequencing of dates and bye weeks? And how will they do that? And that will be the next step in the process. You, of course, watched this intently because you were obsessed with it.
Oh, you bet. Yeah, no doubt about it. But and I think, there's obviously, it's not the excitement of an NFL schedule release. I don't think by any means. Number one, you don't know the dates.
Well, what are you talking about?
No, you don't know the dates.
I did
and
a
the
poll
other part of it.
downtown. Nobody cared what the 49ers are playing except for one guy. One guy.
Well, they care. The Eagles fans care when the rematch is because they're sick of hearing 49ers fans talk. But other than that...
They would not be the first.
No. But, no, I think there's no issue, especially you talked about with the travel. I think the issue's overblown quite a bit. There's no doubt.
Do you have to build in stuff for it? Yeah. But that's up to is up to your staff.
That's up to your school.
Do that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's up to your staff to do that.
Absolutely.
You maybe instead of leaving at noon, you leave at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
Maybe okay.
Or you leave a day earlier to adjust to the time zone. Stuff like that. That's about the.
I don't think that's going to be allowed.
I don't think it would be either. But that's the biggest thing, adjusting to the time zone. USC, yes, is going to have to, they come here late November. That's going to be an adjustment. Absolutely. If that happens. I don't think that's what's going to happen, but who knows?
At some point, they're going to
have to play somebody. Yeah.
In November.
Exactly. Somebody somewhere in late November. They're going to have to adjust to the weather, the time zone. Those are the things you have to adjust to. You don't have to adjust to the travel because at this point, you're used to it. You're going to have, as you said, you have 4-hour trips. You have 5-hour trips. One way or another. Absolutely. There's no question that's overblown. And, the issue is...
But it is not for the other sports who play twice a week.
Exactly. The issues of the other sports, that's where I think you have to get creative when it comes to scheduling. Maybe put, USC and UCLA Friday, Sunday, or same weekend, somewhere in that vicinity where you can hit that travel one time and ease it a little bit. Still not going to make it much easier, but you can ease it a little bit by how you schedule and how you travel, and it's vice versa. USC comes here and then comes to Rutgers. There's something like that where you don't necessarily want to have teams. I
think what you'll do is they would pair them up like Rutgers, Maryland, Ohio State, Penn State.
Absolutely.
Like that. That's how to do it.
Yeah, and I think that's the right way to do it. And it'd be a little bit easier when it comes to that. But in terms of the distance, no, that's not at all anything. I think the excitement really is just the fact that Penn State's going to the Coliseum for the first time since 1992 or 1991. So that's
91.
91, lost that, week 3. Yep. And that's that's probably your most exciting moments. USC is coming to Beaver Stadium. Penn State and UCLA are playing each other. I think that's the stuff that you look at. I don't think the other stuff is, I don't want to say it's a complete intangible, but it's not. It is overblown. You're absolutely right.
Well, again, as a coaching staff, you have to think about it.
Yeah, and have to prepare.
As a logistics staff, you really have to think about it. But you make sure the players don't know you're thinking about it.
Yep.
Eh?
No, you can't, because then they think about it.
Right, because then they think about it.
Absolutely.
They say, guys, you know what? Guess what? If it's brought up, it's like, hey, guys, we got to travel 4.5 hours on a bus to Rutgers. I mean, so what's the difference? Like I said, we think it's easier to fly, so let's go fly.
Yeah.
Literally. Hey, great, we're flying. Plus, we're going to California.
Yeah. The adjustment is going to be, I think without a doubt, is the time zone. I think that's going to be the one thing that is, travel is overblown. I think the time zone is underestimated a little bit. There's a reason why these NFL teams, I think it's an adjustment. I think it's over short time. I think it is. Because
but I've done it.
Oh, there's no doubt you've done it.
I've done it a lot, and it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I think it's different for a lot of people because you look at it, the NFL. I think there's a reason why these teams come east and stay east for a week. There's a reason why these teams go west and stay west for a week because you've got to get that body adjusted. Now, granted, these are NFL college students have. I think you probably can say have more energy. You're in your early 20s. Tom Brady's 40 years old, traveling west. A little different, in my opinion. But still, I do think that is an adjustment that sometimes, for some people, it is tough to make. That's the one thing for me. And then, obviously, the weather. When a team like USC or UCLA comes here or Columbus in later. I think that's something that is going to be, I think it's maybe overblown a little bit, but it's a valid argument. You're coming here for the first time. You have to adjust to that weather. I look at even just players. Look at how long it took Juwan Walker when he got to Green Bay. He finally became a star week 2, week 3, but he went to Florida State and then he went to Lambeau Field. Big difference. That's the kind of stuff that, to me, is a little bit of an adjustment. He was a star for 3 or 4 years. I give him credit.
It's warm at Lambeau Field in
August and September, sure. Yeah, once you hit December, forget about it.
Yeah, but
he didn't see that in Tallahassee.
No, but
Peter Warwick instead of Florida State to Cincinnati, big difference.
Part star went to Alabama.
Yeah. And went to Lambeau? Yeah, absolutely.
Okay to me. Okay?
Yeah, he turned out all right.
Brett Favre went to Southern Mississippi.
He seemed, but again, it's a prime example of people adjust. Some people don't adjust. I think it's valid, but I think it is to an extent overblown a little bit. But I do see the argument. I think especially the adjustment in short term when you're doing it for the first time. Some people may not have gone west yet. Well, I hope Penn State has gone west last year, but some people have. Some teams have not gone west yet.
It wouldn't bother me if they went to Los Angeles this year, last weekend of the year.
No,
that's the semifinal game.
Yeah,
Rose Bowl and Sugar Bowl.
Yep.
Look.
Well, it'll be the first week of the new year, right? Yeah, January 1st, playoffs
it
this
is
year.
January 1.
Yeah,
it's January 1 this time, but they'd have to go out there the week before.
They'd go, yeah.
Hey, look, I understand you have to adjust and so forth, but but those games are not going to be taking place at 9 a.m.
No.
And you're not going to be playing at noon.
No. It is not going to be big noon kick in Los Angeles. Absolutely not. Yeah, and then you're gonna get a canned worm laughter when it happens too.
I don't think that's gonna happen.
They tried it one time. Remember Arizona State USC was big noon. That was a disaster. The score was like 7-6, late fourth quarter. Yeah, it's very much a bad idea. I don't see it from a fan's perspective.
That I'd say you go out Thursday.
Yeah, then you have to. You have no choice. and when it comes to that, but I don't see them doing that in any way. I could be, look, I've seen you've seen more stranger things than me, but I've seen a lot of strange things. I don't think they would do that, but it's going to be interesting. I think from a fan's perspective, it's exciting to see USC because there's the possibility, obviously. Sure, let's be honest. Biggest game of the year is the whiteout. There's a possibility that could be the case next year. There's a possibility you could play them in late November. Those are both very exciting either way.
Well, Penn State, their home and aways in 24 and 25 will be Michigan State, Rutgers, and USC. So those will be the home and aways.
And aways. Yep.
Okay. Everybody else will be a one play, including one with Michigan and one with Ohio State. There you go. That is, you can't, unfortunately, as much as for TV, the TV people would love to have USC, Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan every year play each other.
Right.
It is logistically impossible to do because you can't have them all play each other. Right? You can't do that because you put the conference at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
Because they're knocking each other off.
Yeah, exactly. Knocking each other out. Yeah.
Right? I mean, you put yourself at a real disadvantage when you do that. So I think the three of them, like it's like a 3 out of 4 scenario or something like that, that they play each other. And I guess you really have to look at USC's schedule. I mean, that's the one you have to look at to get an idea. But, obviously Penn State's on there both years, and I think Michigan's on 1 year, and I think Ohio State's on
2025. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm talking about the USC schedule.
Yeah. Ohio State's on USC's in 2025. USC comes to Columbus.
Yeah. So there you go. Coming to Columbus. By the way, the air quality is 43 right now. It's way better.
I was going to say exponentially better. That's good.
It's really good. I mean, yesterday afternoon at one point it was 214 here. Now, I know other places have been 300, 400.
Yeah.
I understand.
Oh, yeah.
But, it's way better today. It's good. It's bark in the park, by the way, today.
I was going to say, it's a night for bring your furry friends to bark in the park. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So, bring your, it's J9, so bring your K9.
There you go.
And that is tonight at the ballpark. It'll be good to get everybody back in the park tonight. Is. Unfortunately, the story about Special Olympics is that's sad.
It's very, very much so.
That's a legitimately
really
sad story that they cannot compete this year.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I mean, they're always so excited for it because I was over at the golf course, and so I talked to several of the golfers, and they were getting ready for the event. And they were all excited for it. And I'll be honest, it was the last thing I expected to hear yesterday. It was the last thing I expected to hear. So, yeah. I mean, you don't consider something like this.
No, you sure don't. You don't prepare for it in any way. It's not, now there's people coming from California saying, hey, we've seen this. I know you have.
There are a lot.
We've not seen it here.
There are a lot of, this happens other places. You want to know why it's a really big deal? Because the media is located in New York and Washington.
Yeah.
They're going, what is this?
What is this?
Okay, over here in the back. Like, have you been west before?
Right.
Yeah. You ever talk to Smokey Bear? Like, come on. But yeah. So, but the quality was bad enough, and wow. It's unfortunately they had to cancel Special Olympics. Now the latest is that Neil Everett is out at ESPN after 23 years, part of the cost-cutting measures. He was offered, evidently, according to the story, a chance to stay at a pay cut, but he's been doing the pregame and postgame for the Portland Trailblazers network on the side anyway. He's going to continue to do that, but he is. He is going to be done at ESPN after a 23-year run. And Stan Verrett gave him a nice send-off, I guess, last night. But yeah, look, they've been paired together for a long time. And we're a good team together. A good team. But that's the story there. It looks like Reggie Bush may be done at Fox.
Wow.
Yeah. Can't come to a contract. And they think that they may replace one Heisman Trophy winner with another, that Mark Ingram.
Yeah, I did see that.
Noon kickoff. And that is, actually, I thought Reggie Bush did a good job.
He's outstanding. Yeah, I think that Big noon kickoff takes its criticism, and for the fact that I know the fans want every game at 8 o'clock. I get that. But for me, I could never. Well, they want the big games at 8. They want the big games in prime time for the most part.
At minimum, they want it at 3:30.
Yep.
I mean, notice. Now let's see what ESPN does with the SEC starting next year. But CBS has had that 3:30 spot forever. Yeah, for the SEC. I think you'll see some of those games go to prime time.
Yep. But the biggest thing with Big Noon, their coverage is outstanding to me. They do a great pregame. You get the chance to witness it. Really, obviously, we're working. I didn't get to see a lot of it, but had the chance to see some of it last year when it was first time Big Noon was here when Ohio State was here. Right. And I thought they did an outstanding job with their coverage. I think they do an outstanding job with obviously the play-by-play. I think Gus and Joe Klatt do an unbelievable job. And then you get into the full coverage of the day. I think that to me is outstanding with how Fox does it. And I know the noon kickoff is something that's frowned upon. And when we were growing up, a lot of the big games were at noon. For me, at least, though, they were.
No,
they were for me.
Always around here, it was like 3:30, and of course, the vast majority of games here are 1:30 kickoffs.
Yep. Yeah,
which is actually a really good time to have a game. It gives you plenty of time to drive in.
That's true.
Gives you plenty of time to get out of here.
Yep, that's true.
I hate to consider that.
Fans don't matter. Well, why should they?
They matter to me.
Yeah,
they matter to me.
They matter. Oh, they are the driving force of everything.
They're the heartbeat of the whole thing.
I am hoping those listening picked up the sarcasm there. But yeah, that's absolutely. They are the heartbeat. They are the driving force, and I think it's no doubt about it. The noon kicks, I think, for me growing up, obviously the Florida schools used to play each other at noon. I think that was really in the early 90s, I think, were the big matchups. Florida State, Miami, Florida State, Florida. And then you had, the SEC. The SEC at that time, I think a lot of the games were at noon. But yeah, a lot of the games here were at 3:30, now to think of it. And I go back to look at it. First game, ironically, for me was 91 Notre Dame. That was a 3:30 game.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they were. Yeah, they were.
All right, so Pat Narduzzi was complaining about
what?
How Deion Sanders has gone about what he's doing at Colorado.
Can't believe Pat Narduzzi's complaining. That doesn't happen.
And I can understand where Pat Narduzzi's coming from because let's face it, he got stung pretty good last year in the Jordan Addison scenario. Okay. So Deion Sanders finally responded to Pat Narduzzi. Quote, "What was his situation when he came to Pitt? He had a different situation than me. He is not mad at me. He's mad at the situation in football now that allowed his best player to leave a year ago. He's not mad at me. He's using me to shoot bullets at another coach who he has an issue with. I don't know who he is. If he walked in here right now, I wouldn't know him." Oh.
He was doing great till he had that last statement. I think he was spot on with
brutal.
Till he said that.
Just brutal.
That's Deion. That is Deion Sanders.
That is just brutal. Wow.
I'll tell you, this is what Deion Sanders has done since he's come to Colorado. I think he makes great points. He ends it with a bang, and it's always a terrible ending. It is literally.
You know what he does? Basically, he big times the other person.
Well, he big times the other person, but then
that's what he does.
Big times the other person. That includes his former players. He talks about the portal.
I'm Deion Sanders.
Which he's done his whole career. This is not completely foreign in any way. This is what he's done his whole career. That's why Tim McCarver had dishwater dumped on him. It's literally what this guy has done his entire career.
I'm just telling you.
the Colorado, he talked about the portal, talked about how he's got to bring his players in. It's an adjustment. He was spot on with it, and then he ends with, he had to get the furniture out of here. Come on.
I know.
It is not their fault that you came in as a coach, and they happened to be at Colorado at the time. You can't fully put it on them. And then literally that comment, I can tell you this, I will never. Never's a long time, but I am 99.9% certain I will not hear James Franklin ever say those words. I am 99% certain I will not hear Ryan Day ever say those words. I'm not even sure I'd hear Jim Harbaugh say those words. That's a stretch, but I'm pretty sure we won't. But you're right. That is literally Deion Sanders in a nutshell. That's what he does. And but this has been his story so far. Press conferences have been great, and he ends it with a not so nice ending. He's done this about 10 times now.
He just big times them.
And that absolutely. And that, like I said, that includes his former players. Just because he didn't recruit them, that's fine, but you don't say moving the furniture out, for crying out loud. It is not their fault. If you literally say, hey, we have to adjust to players to fit our scheme, that's one thing. Furniture mover? Come on.
Was it better that he calls him Louis Vuitton? I mean, I'm bringing my own Louis. I was like, okay.
It is. It's Deion.
I know.
It is literally. And he was the one. He was, well, not the one player, but one of the players in the NFL. When he shot his mouth, he backed it up. Phenomenal. Best coverage corner I ever saw. He couldn't tackle anything standing, but he absolutely was best coverage corner I ever saw play the game.
Actually, I had somebody say he takes away half the field. I'm like, he's covering one guy.
He's covering one guy. Yeah. Yeah, he's covering the, and he was the type would be in the same spot too. He wasn't the type that would move. Mm-hmm. You go back to even the NFC Championship game. He was on Alvin Harper as much as he was on Michael Irvin. He was not a guy that would cover the best guy the whole time.
That's why I thought Jahan Dotson's performance against Auburn was really good a year ago. Roger McCready, right?
Yeah,
they moved,
followed the whole time. Yep,
and Dotson had a big night against him, and he is a really good corner, and he's showing in the NFL.
Yeah,
he's
absolutely.
a good player now, but they don't stick to one side or the other. They'll move their people around, and Jahan had a big night against Auburn, and he did it against their best guy almost all night.
Yep.
Tells you how good he is. Really tells you how good he is.
Absolutely.
Okay. James Franklin did meet with the media yesterday. We talked a little bit about this yesterday. I mean, you kept wanting to talk about the 49ers, so I kind of slowed the show down.
You bet.
What's wrong with you?
Especially when there's nothing going on with that team.
I just want to tell you right now.
Trey Lance threw a pick six in practice. That's been about the only story.
You got to read the room. Before we get to football, I'll close out with basketball. I was obviously with Mike Rhodes last night. Mike wowed the crowd. He did such a great job. There were 500 people in Scranton last night.
Yeah,
for this event, he was phenomenal.
I think he's wowed the fans with what he's done here too. So he's done an outstanding job in this offseason, all things considered.
He's a great guy.
Yep.
Off the court, I can tell you right now, as somebody who's around this a lot, he can really coach.
Yep.
And the point I made last night about him was simple. He knows where he wants to go. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of people who know they want to go.
I was going to say, that's half the battle.
Right? No, that's part of it. A lot of people have, they know where they want to go in life, their career, or whatever.
Yeah, but then it doesn't happen.
The key part is the second part. Yeah. And he knows how to get there.
Exactly.
All right, that's the key part. So they get DeMarco Dunn from North Carolina. He had come out of high school, was a 4-star player. He had mixed results at North Carolina, although he was a plus 42 on the floor this year. So you're saying to yourself, they have 2 North Carolina recruits, Puff Johnson and DeMarco Dunn. Why did they leave? You always have to ask that question. Why did somebody leave? For example, if you're Jalen Pickett or if you're Andrew Funk, it's easy.
Yep.
He was at Siena, and Funk was in the Patriot League. Well, they wanted to see how they would do at the highest level, and both obviously succeeded. So those are easy to look at. When it's Power 5 to Power 5, you have to ask, why is somebody going to leave? Let's examine North Carolina for a moment and examine Hubert Davis's coaching style. And this is not in any way, shape, or form a criticism of his coaching style. But when he had success at North Carolina in the final 6 weeks of the season a year ago, where they caught fire in mid-February, great in the ACC tournament, great in the NCAA tournament, all the way to the championship game against Kansas. What did he do? Right? He basically played 5 guys. And you remember the second half against Duke and Mike Krzyzewski's final game at Cameron Indoor Stadium? Hubert Davis didn't make a single substitution. None. He played the same 5 guys the final 20 minutes. So he rode his starters in that run, and for the most part, he rode his starters this past season. You know, whether it was Caleb Love or whether it was Armando Bacot or whatever, whomever it happens to be. Okay? Now, he would insert some players out there once in a while for short stints, but the bulk of the minutes, I mean the heavy bulk of the minutes, went to 5 guys primarily, which is the same pattern he had the year before when he finally had a team that made that run. Johnson and Dunn probably felt like they were absolutely ready to grab more minutes. I think Dunn had double-figure games the last 2 games he played, including 11 against Virginia this year in North Carolina's final game in the ACC tournament. They're really good players. But they weren't getting any traction there because the 5 guys that Hubert Davis wanted to play and he felt gave him the best chance to win, logged a ton of minutes. And that kept other players from gaining traction in all of this, and they were looking someplace to go where they could get traction. I mean, Dunn's like 6'4", 6'5". Long, does not turn the ball over, can shoot it, and not a bad defender. I mean, he was a great 13th player pickup. Right? They're done now. They're done. As Mike said last night, he says, I have my team now. Okay. And I think Wednesday they're going to really get to work. Leo O'Boyle was there last night, too. It was just great to say. I said, yeah, Leo, this is 19 points, November 25th, Penn State, Black Friday. I said, it's great to have you on the winning team. But Dunn was, if you could hand pick, okay, we need one more. That's the kind of guy you want to hand pick to be your last guy, because a lot of people wanted him. Arizona wanted him. Georgetown wanted him. He ended up coming to Penn State. It's big. It was a big pickup late for Mike and his staff. We'll see how it all plays out. But you put the roster of names in front of me, and I look at that roster and I say, you know what? I got a chance to be very good. Now it's going to be a question of how does it come together? How does it mesh? Okay? Not all these players are going to get the minutes they thought they were going to get. Some will. I think Ace Baldwin's feeling pretty good. He's going to get the minutes he thought he would get. Right? And we'll see how it plays out. It's going to start in the Bahamas. The fact you're allowed to do these foreign trips every 4 years. And it just turned out, as good fortune would have it for Mike, this is the 4th year and they're going to go. Great. It'll give him a chance to get extra practices. And number 2, it'll give him a chance in 2 games to get some practical application of who works, who doesn't, what works, what doesn't, what combination is meshing, and which ones don't. It'll give them a chance to see all of that before they get to, quote, training camp. And I thought that turned out to be just a great pickup. That was one of those really like lift the spirits of everybody kind of pickups. Like, wow, all right. That's terrific. Now for football. Anything you want to add about the 49ers? I mean, a lot of people... No.
No, not really. No, it's been a quiet week, as it should be. That's what you like to hear when it comes to NFL season around this time.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Trey Lance threw a pick 6. That's about all I know. Anytime a quarterback that has some sort of criticism and scrutiny coming into the season, they make one mistake in practice, you hear about it. They can throw 10 touchdown passes. It's that one interception. He threw the interception.
But that's with a fan like you, just consumed with hate.
I'm consumed with concern.
Oh, jeez.
when you have a guy that hasn't played very much, as he hasn't, and you have a guy coming off a UCL surgery, yeah, there's concern.
Now, 50 years ago today.
50 years ago today, what date are we at here? What is today's date? June 9th?
You're killing me.
I'm trying to think of what the date is.
Okay, if it's not John Brody threw a pass, or Ken Willard at a quarterback scored as a fullback, or Dave Parks.
I was trying to figure out what the date even was.
You don't even know what month we're in.
No, we're in June. I got that part down, Pat.
Yeah, but you guessed.
What are you doing? The 9th? It is the 9th. Yeah, 10th is a Saturday. Yeah, it's the 9th. 50 years ago. So that'd be 73, right?
Oh, we're just on a roll here.
I got two right here.
How about if I just say it?
You might have to. It's probably something baseball-wise, I'm hoping. No?
No, it's not. Secretariat.
Oh, okay. Yep. Now I got you. See, he took a back seat when 2 more Triple Crowns emerged. Finally, several years later, even though he's the greatest horse of all time.
Who is the record holder for the fastest Kentucky Derby time?
True.
Who is the record holder for the fastest Preakness time? Who is the record holder by a wide margin Belmont time?
Yeah.
2:24.
Which is the toughest one of the 3.
2:24.
Yep.
50 years ago today, he won the first Triple Crown since Citation in 1948. Citation won. I think Whirlaway won in 47.
Yep.
Citation won in 1948. 25 years. And this horse beat the field by 31 lengths.
Man.
So I texted Dick Girardi this morning. And I said, 50 years ago today, Twice a Prince finished second. Dick texted me back. He just needed a little more time. He finished second by 31 lengths.
Be like me racing Usain Bolt the 200. I just needed a little bit more time.
Yeah, just a little more time. Just need a little more time. We'll catch him.
Another little bit more time and he'd fall. Or
something. That's one of the great lines from Lucian Lauren, the trainer. He yelled out to Ron, "Don't fall off, Ronnie. He's so far front. Don't fall off. It's the only way the horse could lose." All right. And won by 31 lengths. It's one of the greatest performances in the history of sports. It's 50 years ago today. And this is, let's keep going with the 50-year theme.
Yep.
Because this is going to be the 50th anniversary year of John Cappelletti's Heisman Trophy.
Yep. That I did know. 73.
How do I know when you're just like agreeing with what I'm saying?
No. Cappy's.
You got to come up with some original.
I'll
thoughts.
never forget. Obviously I was not born, but growing
you weren't born.
Growing into a Penn State.
There's nothing to forget.
No, I will not forget growing into a Penn State family. Hearing Cappelletti's Heisman Trophy speech, priceless. I think you go back on it. Yeah, he talked. I remember I had the chance to talk to him a couple times. One of the greatest people you can talk to,
goodness.
Hands down, without a doubt.
John Cappelletti's a flat out great guy.
Yeah, he talked about what got him to Penn State. He talked about being recruited here, and he told the story about how Joe would spend literally at least half the recruiting trip with Joey, and that to me was just special. I think that told a lot about that moment, no doubt about it.
Everybody will remember the speech.
Oh, there's no question.
No question.
No question.
Right?
Yeah.
And justifiably so.
Yes.
But remember what got him to the speech.
Mm-hmm.
Right? 3 consecutive 200-yard rushing games, which had not been accomplished before in college football. He was a spectacular player with great durability. And, the year before, Penn State loses the Orange Bowl 14-0. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, lost the Sugar Bowl 14-0. John couldn't play in the game. He got sick. He ran for 1,144 yards as a junior. And all of a sudden, you're looking around like no John Cappelletti that night. I think that game was actually played on New Year's Eve. And Oklahoma won it. They had Kerry Jackson at quarterback, and by the way, had to vacate it. Really? But this is the 50th anniversary year of John Cappelletti's run to the Heisman Trophy. So this is my favorite John Cappelletti non-football story, but deals with football. They did Big Ten icons?
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Yep.
And I think it was just on this week. And the only reason I know is I had several people come up to me last night and say, "Hey, we saw you in Big Ten." I'm like, "Oh, okay, which one?" I said, "Oh, John Cappelletti." Well, I'm on a fair amount of time in it, talking about that his career, his legendary season, Heisman Trophy winning season. And so we're in line to get into the media box. John's tickets for the game were on the west side media box. He was not over on the east side. And John says, "Hey, Steve, how are you? Good. Hey, Jack. Hey, great to see you, Jack." And so, you know how John is. John's just, it's a, soft-spoken, but just a really great guy. And now he goes to go in. And he hands the tickets over. I think he had like 5, 6 tickets, whatever it was. They scan the first ticket. Nothing. Scan it again. Nothing. Third time, no. So John says, "Well, how about another ticket?" They take the ticket, scan, nothing. Scan again, nothing. John gives him a third ticket. I finally looked over. I said, "Truman, we've had one Heisman Trophy winner." I said, "For God's sakes, let him in." Truman's like, "You're right. Just go in." And John turns around. He's laughing. He goes, "That's good, Steve." Yesterday, updates were given by Chuck Losey, Andy Frank, Josh Nelson, the assistant coaches, and James Franklin on the football team. Here it is. It is, the 9th of June. The opener with West Virginia is a little more than 2.5 months away. Training camp is about 7 weeks away, right in that neighborhood. This is an important time for the players because now, except for a few that are coming in on June 30th, or right around there, June 27, 28, whatever it is, everybody else is here. So you have the freshmen here to go with the ones that were here all spring. You also now have the transfers in. But there were a couple of updates. One did not surprise me at all, and that was when he was talking about Devon Ellies and Akeem Beamon. That didn't surprise me at all. Anybody who's been around it can see Ellies is a natural leader to begin with. He's really picked up the baton that his McDonough teammate, P.J. Mustipher, left there for him, and Devon has grabbed it, and you can see when you're around, he is one of the leaders on that defensive front. No getting around it. His performance has backed up the leadership. And his performance either in practice, in the weight room, away from the practice field, he's been a leader. And he's poised to have a really good year. The other guy I mentioned is Akeem Beamon. Beamon's put on more weight. And after the Michigan game last year, James Franklin talked about got to get bigger. Beeman's bigger. And that's going to make a difference. Now, they've added in Alonzo Ford. And Chuck Losey was straightforward about it yesterday. He says, look, it's the first time he's really been in our kind of system. There's some things that we need to do with him. We'll get there, but, we have to do it. Okay. I'll say this. Ford performed well against the Power 5 opponents at Old Dominion. But this weight training situation for him is going to be a huge plus. It puts him into that kind of system. And you look at the Tyler Elsdon, Theo Johnson, Tyler Warren, and Dominic DeLuca, who all did not participate, as you saw, in the blue-white game, are all full go, which is great news, getting them back in the mix. What I pointed out last night when I made my speech in Scranton was, look, they said, we're just talking about the base 22. I said, a lot of teams put out a really great, terrific base 22. I said, the difference is Penn State can go as many as, in my opinion, 65 guys can play in this team. 65 guys can play. Now you got to figure out how many of those are really going to play the bulk of the minutes. But I've said this many times that when I look at Penn State's defense and I look at the starters, I consider 25 guys to be starters. You don't have guys that come in and play 8 plays and they're done for the day. When they rotate guys, these guys are getting 20, 30 plays. Now, James, so correct about Collins, the defensive back that came in from Mississippi State. I know that they think he has some really terrific skills. As James pointed out yesterday, I talked to Collins yesterday briefly for the first time. He says, got to put on some weight. Yep. He does, no question. Cephas does a lot. Remember, he was Daquan Hardy's teammate in high school. Evidently, in the locker room, he's just terrific. And he knows how to play the game. He knows how to play, and he knows how to go about his business. Trey Potts, with a Nicholas Singleton and a Katron Allen, you still needed to have a guy like Trey Potts. The fact that Potts wanted to come here is tremendous. And again, another guy who's a veteran that knows how to go about his business. Yeah, maybe Penn State does a few things differently than Minnesota does. Penn State does a few things differently than Kent State does in Cephas's case. No question. But they've adapted to what Chuck and Alvin and those guys want to do. And it was important to get those updates on those particular players because they're coming in with the idea, look, Cephas was not coming in to watch. Cephas is coming in and he is going to play. And you feel so much better about the situation with Keandre Lambert-Smith, Trey Wallace, Dante Cephas, Amari Evans, and I'm still, and I'm glad he talked a lot yesterday about Liam Clifford and Caden Saunders, because I think they both have a chance to be really good. Saunders understands how this is going to go. He understands now how it's going to go as opposed to a year ago, and it's making a big difference for him. And then Malik Megan knows what's going on. Malik McLean is now, after going through the winter program, understands how this program operates. I think it's going to be big for him. Getting Johnson and Warren back is huge. Remember, Drew Aller and Bo Perbula had to operate in a quarterback sense with one arm tied behind their back based on personnel, but it did give them an opportunity to get Khalil Dinkins into the mix, and I think he took advantage of it. Dinkins did a good job. And James made a great point yesterday. The wide receivers are not just competing with themselves; they are competing with the tight ends. You're like, well, what do you mean they're competing with the tight ends? Because if you're going to go with four receivers out there, 2 may be wideouts and 2 may be tight ends. Unless the wide receiver is so superior, now you're going to go with 1 tight end and 3 wideouts, or maybe you go with 4 wides. So you're not just competing with other wide receivers, you're also competing with the tight ends, and Johnson and Warren obviously are very, very good. But it's a team that has athleticism, it has depth, and they have a good work ethic. And that's what came out, I think, of yesterday's session. You wore that shirt to torment me, the audience,
everybody.
the Rams.
The Rams. Oh, fuck, come on, the Rams. Yeah, 49ers lose one game to the Rams in the last quarter century, and it's the most important one they played them in.
NFC Championship game. Oh, you didn't win that, did you?
No, no. Jaquiski Tart still hasn't caught that interception.
Again, your analysis is always the blame game.
No, the Rams outplayed them in the fourth quarter. That was a big part of it.
Just blame. Watch the movie Secretariat.
I will have to do that. I have not seen it.
Guess who has lines in it?
Dick Girardi.
Dick Girardi.
All right.
They filmed it at Keeneland.
Nice.
Right? Calls me up. He says, hey, they asked me to be in the movie Secretariat. I'm like, great. So before he went down to do his scenes, I know the scene by heart. Want to know why? Who do you think ran lines with him? He says, can you run a couple lines with me? I said, sure. I said, what part am I playing here? I said, don't tell me I'm Diane Lane. He says, you're not. I said, okay, good. I said, it would be such an insult to Diane Lane. So, hey, have a great weekend.